It's the weekly on a Friday morning here on the Blue Room. I've got Warren and I've got Pete with me, and we've got what, just over 24 hours. Is it? No, we're on 32 hours until Everton play Burnley at home. A crucial game, this one now. Given the result that we got over at Newcastle, given the result that Luton didn't get away at Arsenal. Um, just wanted your thoughts quite quickly on this because we haven't spoken since before that Newcastle game. That point we went and got. I thought we stole it. To be honest, I know a lot of people disagree with me because they thought we played well, but I certainly thought after the first half, Newcastle could have been out of sight quite comfortably in the end. Great performance from Pickford as well, but to snatch that draw at the end certainly felt to me more like a win with the bonus that it was Calvert-Lewin who scored the goal.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I was fuming at half time. I was absolutely livid with the performance. I thought it was toothless. I thought that it was absolutely doing my head in that we seem to have slipped into this habit of constantly trying to play the ball through the middle, not using the width of the pitch, and I just couldn't see how we were going to get back into the game, to be honest with you. But then, to be fair, we came out the second half and had a go. I thought the substitutions, arguably for once, were probably spot on. I think the substitutes changed the game. I think it's probably the first time that we haven't had two goalkeepers on the bench for a long time as well, which probably helped that we seem to have players that we could choose from who could come on and make an impact. But having said that, I mean, we could still be playing now, and we wouldn't have scored if it wasn't for that dumbass at the back for
Yeah.
Newcastle. Can you imagine if that was one of ours who did that? By the way, what an absolute idiot! I've never seen. I mean, not only did he get Young in a headlock, it's the way he fell and then took him with him. It was like a proper UFC style, like body slam. Like if you
Yeah.
know, I just thought it was absolutely crazy from him. Because I didn't. As much as we played okay in the second half, I still don't think we looked like we threatened them. But having said that, you take it all day. Calvert Lewin gets his goal. Hopefully that can set him up now, and that's a little bit of pressure off him.
Yeah.
And let's hope that he can now go into these crucial home games with a bit of confidence and hopefully pick up some form because if we can get him on form and scoring goals, I think we'll be okay.
We were talking at length. Well, it's sort of been the narrative we're speaking about a lot, hasn't it? What with Dyche and what he's done substitute wise and things like that. Felt a little bit different from him this time. It felt like he was. I'm not going to go as far as saying learning his lesson. It's almost that he'd be making a point if he brought substitutes on and we were still useless. But I felt when Garner nearly scored, didn't he, when he come on at the post. The various things felt a little bit different. And Pete said it does drive you crazy when you're seeing him trying to play the ball through the middle when we simply don't have that sort of midfield. I didn't. Again, the other thing that was disputed quite a lot since then was Onana's performance. A lot of people look. I get it. The thing with him is that people are just consistent in saying that how good he is. He's a world class player and things like that. And that might look if he played for a different club, he might well easily be sitting here and saying that very thing. But um, to me, I'm sort of twixt in between whether he's sort of missing out on for with us, given what's in and around him and what he's doing himself. And he was brought off as well. And I actually think I actually think we got a bit better when he actually went off the pitch.
That was the strange thing about it because I actually thought he played really well. Well, not really well, but I thought he was one of the better players on the pitch in that first half. And we talked about it in post-match day, didn't we? How I was furious when he got taken off. I really was because I thought
Yeah,
we're playing this style of football where we're not really seeing anything, we're not getting anything out of it. And the one player on the pitch who seemed to come short and want the ball and want to try and pass forward, he took off. But then the whole sort of discrepancy about that was you're quite right. Once he went off, we played a lot better. He has been an enigma this season, Anana, because there is a player in there undoubtedly, but I also think it's a case of if he had better players around him, he'd look better. I think probably the way we're playing, and it's a bit of a case with a lot of players in the side at the minute, but the way we're playing and the way we're doing things and the way we're having to grind out results rather than go all out offensively and try to, play this beautiful style of football, which we're just not capable of. It's affecting him. and it's affecting how possibly his, there's always talk, isn't there, about the style of play brings out the best in a player. And, we referenced Dom there, and under Ancelotti, Dominic Calvert-Lewin was told to just stay between the boxes, don't go wide, stay in the, get in the penalty area. And then he had, off the back of that, his best goal scoring running in Everton shirt and his best goal scoring season. Perhaps there's something to that if we had another ball playing centre midfielder around Onana, or we played in a different way, or we played a little bit more of high intensity possession based football, maybe we'd see the best of him. But we're just not. And I think the way we had to play in that second half, it got us out of it. And that was the weird thing, wasn't it? That when he went off, we was such a better team. And
Yeah.
Thoughts went towards Saturday and with Burnley. And do we start with that team that finished the game second half? And there's discussions around, particularly with the midfielder and who plays there. I do think Garner comes back in because he seems to trust Garner more than anyone in that midfield, hasn't he? James Garner, that is. And I think he comes back in based on his second half performance when he came on. I mean, I referenced the fact that I thought his performance at Bournemouth was appalling, but then I thought he did really play well and had some initiative and had some impetus in the game second half on against Newcastle. So I think he probably comes in. It's just whether he starts alongside him. Does he drop a Nana and play Garner Guy in there, or does he play a Nana with him? I don't know. Garner and the Nana seem too similar, or not too similar because they're obviously very different players, but they seem like they'd be asked to do the same job, both of them. And can we afford to have two of them do the same job in that midfield? Maybe we need someone a bit more of a destroyer in there. I don't know. I think the one thing I would say though, Dave, and if we're talking about individuals, we talk for a lot on this show about how when he was injured, we really missed him. And I think Decore needs to really have a big performance on Saturday. There's a lot of talk, Pete's just said there about Calvert-Lewin, and it's key to get him starting. And yeah, it is absolutely. If we can get our striker scoring, then how many times we said this season will be fine. But for me, Decore's really got to step up, because when he was in that vein of form in December, when we got those back-to-back wins, against Chelsea, Newcastle, Forest, he was outstanding. He was the focal point in that team. He was the one who you thought, well, he's going to drive us forward. And the main thing for me on Tuesday, why we suffered so much, it's all well and good playing direct, and it's all well and good, you're playing that little bit more, getting the ball forward quicker. And we've talked on the show about how it's not necessarily a long ball tactic. It's getting the ball forward quicker into more attacking areas quicker. I've got no issue with that. I've got no issue with that style of play. What you must do is you must have midfielders and you must have wingers running forward, joining in. And there was a key moment for me in about the 20th, 25th minute in that first half, and it was right in the middle of us playing really poorly. We got the ball forward to Beto, and he did really well. I thought he had a decent game on Tuesday, Beto.
Yeah.
But we got the ball forward to him. He did really well to hold on to it. He chased onto it and he got in behind the Newcastle defence. And Dave, it was about 20 yards away from any midfielder and anyone running forward. And you look at it and you go, what's he supposed to do? Yeah, of course, he looks a little bit stranded and a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
What's he going to do when he's got no one coming forward? And that's what we're gonna need going into this game Saturday. We need runners from midfield, because that's what we were doing in that run of games in January. We talked about it ad nauseum about how we didn't have necessarily the possession, and we were looking at it at the end goal. We've only got 32% possession, but we've had 16 shots on target. Everyone in that midfield was busting a gut to get forward. I don't know whether it's tired legs. I don't know whether it's a confidence thing and a fear of not wanting to leave the opposition in behind and fall into a counter attack. I don't know what it is, but that needs to happen for me on Saturday. I feel that in that first half, especially, we didn't want to get bodies forward. Second half, we kept the ball a bit better, which maybe allowed us to do that. That's going to be for me a real key on Saturday. If we are to get a win, which, God, it's a massive game, isn't it? We so badly need the 3 points, and it's going to be huge on Saturday. So that for me is the key to it, to getting the 3 points.
Yeah, I think what you said there about the way no one gets near anybody we have forward, I think that's been a huge problem for us. Even when we've had, obviously when you have lesser possession with that sort of thing, Pete, it's like, well, it's all well and good that we're sort of buzzing off having lesser possession, we're still getting a result in a game. how many chances are you going to get if you don't get people in and around, if you don't get bodies in and around who's playing up front for us? Um, like one said, I completely agree. I think that was possibly Beto's best game for us there. And he actually led the line really well. He kept hold of the ball. Um, you know, he's become a bit of a joke, hasn't he? But let's be honest, he's needed. You know, we need him to play. Given especially what Calvert-Lewin's back, it's sort of like, it's a difficult thing to sort of choose who you want in there. And I never thought I'd be saying that against the lad that we got in, who, let's face it, I don't think he's very good as a footballer anyway, and one that's a striker that should play every game for us if he's fit. I know fitness has been an issue for Calvert-Lewin, but it certainly hasn't been this season. It's been quality. It's been confidence. It's been various things. I think that he's had a big issue with. I have to say, I was dreading that he was the man who was taking that penalty because I was happy. I was more than happy. I said, "Yeah, Ashley Young, you take it." Ashley Young's renowned for taking decent pens and set pieces. Give it to Ashley Young. Just don't give it to Onana. I know he's off the pitch. Don't give it to him. Anyone else is fine. But moving forward and looking at this against Burnley, again, I think there's been a lot of assumptions that we go and do this, and then it's like, we only need maybe one or two more wins and we're safe and all that, and then obviously other people like myself will bring into the fact that you've got all of this, appeals coming in and various stuff like that. In my opinion, with all of this, and we're four clear with the game in hand, which sounds a lot more healthy than what it was. But I think you can eliminate anything that comes with those appeals and those sanctions and whatever else happens if we go and get 10 ahead of 18th place. If we get 10 ahead of that, I'm pretty 100%, well, 99.9% certain that Everton won't be affected by anything that comes their way, and that will be staying in the Premier League. And that in turn, it's a funny feeling that I've got with this Burnley game, because I watched Burnley quite extensively against Chelsea, and they were brilliant against Chelsea. Went and got a point there with 10 men. They've started to grow, and I know they've been crap. The results have been crap. They're probably going to go down. But I was petrified this midweek, because I was thinking, hang on, Burnley are winning away at Chelsea. We were losing at Newcastle. Then all of a sudden, they were 4 points behind us. So I don't take this as a gimme at all against Burnley, because they're a typical kind of side. They'll make it really, really awkward for us. And look at how notorious our form's been at Goodison this season as well, Pete. I mean, first thing I wanted to ask you about, we were talking about, like, we're trying to get Goodison's going to be like it was, given that, like, everybody's bouncing around County Road with Everton flags and the atmosphere and all that. Just tell me first of all what you're doing with that today, because that's why we're doing this so early.
Yeah, well, I've been helping with the 1878s. I mean, it's been a bit of an eye opener, to be honest with you, just in terms of how much work goes into organising these things.
When I seen the pictures you put out of Goodison, I thought, if they just let him in to sit there on his own in a seat.
Yeah, no one let me in. I just jumped over by the church. But
I'm just going to sit here and think about things.
But basically, because I volunteered when, obviously when we were doing the protests against the Premier League, and I helped out with a few, handing out some of the flyers and things like that, and we did a little thing at Walton Hall Park as well. And since then, I was asked if I could just basically just lend a hand with the 1878s, and as I say, it's been a real eye opener for me in terms of just how much work they put in to organising this kind of thing. And it's obviously, it's all in their own time. Everyone's volunteers. I don't think anyone could say they get much out of it in terms of the scrutiny, the levels of scrutiny that certainly some of the members have. But as I say, this has been planned for a number of weeks now, and it's great to see that the plan is sort of coming together. We're hoping that the Goodison can be at its very best on Saturday. I don't think anyone at all is trying to tell Evertonians how they should be and how they should act, how they should. No one's got the authority or the say on what Evertonians should do. In other words, no one's gonna. No one's trying to say if you do sing, you're a better blue or anything like that.
Been an unfortunate week with that as well, Pete, hasn't it? With that sort of thing going on.
Well, that's it. So I just think at its most basic level, and this is a point I'll be reiterating as well later on, like, we can't do anything about what happens in boardrooms. We can't do anything about what happens at PSR hearings or what happens with the formations, what happens with the team that's picked. We can't do anything about points deductions. What we do have an impact on and what we can do and what we can affect is the atmosphere at Goodison Park. We have that choice to make. We have a choice to make basically as a fan base. Do we give up or do we carry on fighting? And the fight has got to start this weekend. It's got to. There's no two ways about it. We can't be sleepwalking into another relegation battle. I think everyone's fully aware this time that we are well and truly in it. But we can't be waiting around till the last two home games of the season to suddenly pick the atmosphere up. We need to do it now, and that's what I mean. Obviously, putting a few flags out isn't gonna make the difference in terms of it's not going to get us 3 points. But if it can somehow ignite the atmosphere and get everyone in early, get everyone up for battle, basically, get everyone ready to fight for 90 minutes in the stands. Don't mean amongst ourselves this time, by the way. I just mean, get behind the players, because we all know the impact that Goodison Park has, in a positive and negative way, let's be honest. But what we need to do is we need to harness the Goodison Park atmosphere and get behind our players. I know it's difficult, and I know it's at the end of the day, a lot of us are at the end of our tether. We've been through the mill, certainly over the last couple of seasons, but longer than that. But we still go every week, and we still support the players, and everyone is entitled to their opinions, and everyone is obviously entitled to be annoyed and pissed off. I don't blame anyone for it. But as I say, there's still a choice to make. I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off at the position we're in. I'm annoyed with decisions that have been made. I'm annoyed that the fan base was thrown under the bus last season in January. But at the same time, the only alternative, if we don't back them and we don't get behind them, the only alternative is giving up. And I just don't, that's not the way I do things. So I'm hoping that as many people can get into Goodison early on Saturday, we can start building the atmosphere early, and hopefully we can get behind the players and start pushing from the first minute till the last, and get those 3 points, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day, is getting those 3 points. And anything we can do to have any kind of influence on that as a fan base, we've just got to do it.
Burnley, we're going about that in a sec. But Warren, you sort of echoed that sort of comment in your own fans after post-match as well, giving people who were sort of travelling all around the breadth of the country. We've always had that sort of reputation as a fan base that it's really hard to go and get tickets and all that. And I know that was another unfortunate issue as well, wasn't it, when we were talking about that, and what you see on the sort of on the social media this week about stuff that's happened with that, but I don't want to get into that. This against Burnley though, and sort of mixing that up with what Pete was saying there about how our fan base is. I know you're coming up for it as well. You live about 5,000 miles away, don't you? This against Burnley in itself, I mean, that goes back to what I initially said, where you just can't take this game for granted, even though you're playing a side that look like the dead and buried in terms of going back down to the Championship.
Well, they've got nothing to lose in a sense, have they? And I think it gets to a point sometimes with teams who are down there. Sort of a little bit of it was Sheffield United last night as well. It's almost like, well, we know we're doomed. We've got nothing to lose anyway. And there's almost a bit of freedom involved with it. And I think that's reflected in some of Burnley's performances and results in recent weeks, to the point where, like you said earlier, had results gone a certain way, they would have only been a couple of points behind us going into the weekend. So there's a lot to consider. But with regards to the fans, I mean, I completely agree with Pete. And I think one of the things why I wanted to give the nod to the fans who went to Newcastle on Tuesday was I referenced in the show how, this club does its best to break us. It really does. And I think, just talking from a personal point of view, it's, and I know you're similar age, both of you, to myself, but I think sometimes, you know what, I've followed this club for 30 odd years now, and I bar the odd season here and there, which has been decent under Moyes, and that one good season for Martinez, I've had absolutely nothing to shout about.
Yeah.
And yet, and by the way, that goes the same for a lot of people. And I'm not trying to sort of, paint our generation of Blues or the younger generation of Blues out to be any better. But I tell you what, we've had some good going supporting this club in terms of our dedication, because we've had nothing at all to sort of claim and be proud of, really, when you think about it. And when you see other teams who in that 30-year period have won trophies and we haven't, the likes of Swansea, Wigan, Middlesbrough, Bolton, teams like that, or not Bolton, but Bolton have got into Europe and things like that as well. It really does make you question your support and why you do it. But, again, you look at Saturday at Bournemouth, and then if you've got possibly the furthest away southern game on the Saturday, you've got possibly then the furthest northern game on the Tuesday. And we sell out everywhere we go. And there's one thing, regardless if we go another 30 years without doing a bit, winning a bean or doing anything, that'll never change, because the one thing that Everton fans do is they absolutely love this club, no matter how much of despair he causes. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to give the nod to the fans on Tuesday, because, like I said, there are times, especially this season, where I've just thought, what is the point? We're just never going to be ever any, are we ever allowed to have any enjoyment ever again with this football club? And I think fans could be easily forgiven for, especially now after the last 3 years, for not having the energy anymore. But as Pete said, I think when it comes to a fight, we're ready to back and support, and we're ready to be there, and we're ready to do what needs to be done to get the team over the line in whatever circumstance. And there is a tiredness, there is a lack of I wouldn't say apathy, but there's just a lot of us are fed up, and we want change, and we just want something to shout about again, I think, because it has been a horrible, I'd say now, 5 6 years.
Oh
And
yeah.
then like a lot of us have said, over the longer than that, we've had to put up with a lot of rubbish over, on the pitch primarily for the last 25 30 years, bar the odd good season here and there. So I did get to a point where I'm like, I don't know if I've got the energy anymore. Have I got the energy to drive up and travel all them hours? Have I got the energy to go and travel to away games and spend a lot of money and take time out of my schedule to do that, when ultimately I'm just going to get served up performances like that first half on Tuesday? But you'd have a look at them fans, and it just really hit home in the I think it was about the 70th minute. We were still 1-0 down, still not playing brilliantly, but trying to get back in the game. And all I could hear was the away end,
Mm.
Goodison Gang, Spirit of the Blues, individual player songs. And I just thought that's what it's about. And like Pete just said there, there's two things we can do. We can sit back and just wallow in the fact that, oh, we're in another relegation fight, and oh, the bad news just keeps coming out, or we can get to match day and actually say, do you know what, and do what we do best. Do you know what? You want to scrap, or I say that figuratively, not literally, but you want our backs to the wall. Well, look, here we are, and we're going to be as one, because definitely, without sounding too corny or cheesy about it, when we are as one, i.e. fans, players, the impact of Goodison is fantastic. And just on that as well, I've said it a few times this season, but we've got what, 20 odd games left at Goodison. I mean, that in itself is reason
Yeah.
enough to want to go on Saturday and make it horrible, because we've only got so much time where we can enjoy it, and we can, love this old ground of ours before it's gone. And, it's gonna creep up. It's gonna creep up before we know it. It'll be like 5 games left at Goodison, and that's when it's really gonna hit home. And whilst we've got these 20 odd games, we need to absolutely make the most of it, and none more so than Saturday against the team down there with us who, listen, we should be beaten. Let's make no mistake about it. It should be 3 points. And that's not me saying take it lightly. And that's not me saying, don't disrespect the fact that they've had a few decent performances lately. That's me saying it's Everton at home to Burnley. We've already beaten them twice this year. We should be nailing these and putting a bit of distance between ourselves and, the bottom three. And with the home games we've got left as well, we should be doing that in every home game we've got left. And if we can see ourselves through these home games, we stand a brilliant chance of staying up and being quite comfortable staying up as well. But it's got to be it's got to be a part played, not just by the fans, which I've no doubt that'll happen anyway. But I've used this word a lot on the show recently. Responsibility from the players, putting their head in where it hurts, putting the bodies on the line where to get to score as a goal, or to win that 50-50 tackle. That needs to be done. If you do that, if they do that, the Goodison crowd will be right behind them, and that's never been in doubt. So we need that all to work on Saturday, and we need to be taking these points. And I think, listen, we get them 3 points somehow on Saturday. It just breeds a little bit of fresh air and a bit of calmness and a bit of confidence for us to build on then and go into the rest of the season on a bit of a high. I'd love to get into that Sheffield United game on the last home game and be comfortable and be out of sight. And that'd be a real treat for us. And it seems horrible to say a treat, but it will be after the last couple of seasons we've had. It will be, and that should be the aim of the players and the aim of us as supporters as well. Get through every game now that we can and back them, like Pete said.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I hope we go into that Sheffield United game here with sunglasses on and suntan lotion and all that sort of thing. I mean, I'd actually do that, you know what I mean? Just to make a point that it's nice to go into the summer not feeling petrified, or nice to go to Arsenal on the last day and just be able to sing songs and have a laugh down in London. In terms of the approach here with this, I mean, it's not going to be a game that anybody neutral is going to be thinking, I really want to see Everton take on Burnley here, Pete, because I don't think it's going to be nice on the eye at all. In fact, I think having watched Burnley, I think they actually play a better style of football than us, or typically better than us. That's why I'm a little bit concerned about the approach we take here, because obviously we want to be on the front foot at home, but not, to contradict that, the best we've done this season is when we haven't had as much of the ball as our opponent. I sort of feel as if that's where at times Goodison's sort of been our Achilles heel, to be honest with you, because I think that there's rightly so, going back to fans, we're screaming for the team to have the ball as much as they possibly can. I just refer back to that fella, I mentioned it about 50 times this season, fella that was sitting next to you that time we were winning 1-0 against Brighton. He said, I'm getting off. Older man it was. I'm sure many people have heard this if you listen to any post matches. And I said, why? He said, I'm not watching this. I'm not watching how Everton play here. Like, we're winning a 1-0, mate. You know what I mean? We haven't done this much so far this season and all that. We need to stay on this run of form. Just look at the scoreboard. I went, no. I've watched Everton over the years. I mean, this isn't Everton for me. And by the way, I'm not sort of condoning what he said whatsoever there, but I think this is where everyone needs to come. Like one said, not saying it as cheesy as you really want to hear what I'm saying here, but playing a game at home against Burnley, I reckon 20 minutes in, say if Burnley have had 2 or 3 chances or even scored the first goal, Goodison can be at its worst when that sort of thing happens, Pete. So I guess what I'm saying is how Dice approaches this to just go hell for leather against Burnley at Goodison, or like I've said recently, them going and getting a point at Chelsea shows that they can cause damage.
Well, that's it. That's it. I think Chelsea fell into that trap, didn't they? Where they did actually, they were so desperate to go out and get a win. The Burnley, sorry, were able to hit them and they were able to punish them. I think we've actually done well against Burnley twice this season because we've allowed them possession, if you like, and then we've pressed them really well. And I think that's something which has been a bit of a difference in our play more recently, where results haven't gone our way. When we were sort of in our
Sorry to interrupt you, mate. Sorry to interrupt you on that. I think with that, what you've just referred to there, it's really hard, and I include myself in this by no ways, I want to sound like any sort of martyr or anything, but when these things happen, it's hard to watch, and it does make things difficult to support when Everton are playing in a particular way. Because you do, I've sat there before, I've stood there before saying, come on, Everton, this is shite. Yeah, we've gone and won a game 1-0, and I've felt like you sort of contradicted yourself here coming away from it, saying we played well there, but it's any means necessary, isn't it? That's what I'm sort of trying to get at here. I don't care how we play against Burnley. I don't care how Onana does. I don't care, how we score the goals and what score we win by. I don't care if he comes off the backside of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The way Everton play, that's something of history, sadly for us. Like what I mentioned there or referred to in Moyes in his best days and in Martinez in his first year. That was, again, unfortunately, that's our glory days as 30-something-year-old fellas. Yet they're the fondest memories because of how Everton played, how they approached games, how we were constantly trying to attack all the time, passing the ball on the floor. That has to go away from any form in our thoughts towards this, doesn't it? And it's just got to be regardless at any cost. I go as far as saying.
Well, that's it. The most important thing is us getting 3 points on Saturday. Getting 3 points tomorrow. That's the most important thing. But as I was saying, in terms of I think a big difference that seems to have been happening and that has creeped in, certainly since the turn of the year, is when we were getting good results, we seem to be pressing as a really good unit, certainly in the final third. And that press was what, to be honest, that type of thing can energize the crowd. Because if you're seeing players chasing down defenders and putting them under pressure, making them make mistakes, not allowing them to play the ball out, and it's all high tempo and high energy. I think that does translate into the crowd, and it doesn't necessarily. I always think about Goodison, it only takes one tackle. I always say that. The crowd can be as flat as any game, but one tackle, Goodison hits the roof. And I just think that we need to get that energy in that final third again. And like you were saying before about Beto being so isolated against Newcastle, that to me points towards a lack of energy and a lack of sort of commitments in that final third. And that's what I want to see. I want to see coming back. I think it hasn't helped. Obviously, Dwight McNeil looks, out of form. He looks like he's playing within himself at the moment. Whether that's confidence, whether that's just general fitness, I don't think he's ever really recovered properly from that ankle injury he picked up against Crystal Palace. I almost feel like he was rushed back in a bit too quick. Jack Harrison,
wasn't he?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think he was back within 2 weeks, wasn't he? And it looked really bad one at the time. So, I'm not making excuses for him, by the way, but I still think that that he can make a difference. We just need to step it up. Basically, we just need to. I mean, I've got this thing about Dyche as well, where he will have been looking at these fixtures that we've had recently. He's looking at Bournemouth away. He's looking at Newcastle away. His eyes would have been. I know he'll try and say, you got to look at the next game. You got to take it game by game. I really do think that we've been building up, if you like, with one eye, or at least on these run of home fixtures, thinking that this is where we can pick up points here. This is where we can do some damage, and it's all on. Well, it's all on the players, but it's we've also got a job to do ourselves. Like I said before, we've got to try and help bring that energy, because if we're demanding of the players, there's a way to demand without getting on the players' backs. Do you know what I mean? Like at Goodison, as I say, sometimes when you see a player, I mean, it happens in every ground. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's necessarily unique to Goodison Park, but when you do see players with high energy and pressing and harassing the back line of the opposition, not allowing them to play out, not allowing them to settle, it can actually scare the life out of the opposition as well. As much as it inspires our players, the opposition get nervous then as well. So I just think that's going to be so key, because Burnley do like to play it out from the back, and they play all right football, but and what I remember Blackpool played great football when they were up in the Premier League. They went down and they've never been back up. No disrespect to Blackpool, but at the end of the day, it's about results, and whether we win 1-0, 5-0, or 2-1 with a last minute, like you say, goal going in off Dominic Calvert-Lewin's arse. We just need to get 3 points tomorrow. That's the be all and end all.
So when looking at this against Burnley, how do you even go about approaching this? How do you think Dyche is thinking about this? Because first of all, there's history here, because it's his former side that he was in charge for 9 years, who he sent down the year before last. I mean, I'm really interested in, and I know Matt's going to go and do the preview with the Burnley fan, talking about how different they are under Vincent Kompany. But our approach into this, how'd you look at probably the same question, similar question I said to Pete there just now. How'd you even approach this? Because it does have to stay front and centre in my mind, how this sort of thing addresses what we're like as fans here, because it is normal as a club, isn't it, to think, I can't be bothered here. Well, you get angry if your opposition starts getting a couple of chances. You start fuming at various players that we've got to have let the ball get crossed in, or there's been a mistake, or anything like that happens. Obviously, you've got to take a different perspective from ourselves as fans, but what does Dyche do about setting this up?
I think the fact it's Burnley won't really play a part in his mind. I know he had, like you said there, a substantial amount of time as their manager, but I think he's so headstrong, isn't he? He's so just, for lack of a better term, he's so just Sean Dyche, isn't he? He won't let that come into his thinking. There'll be no sentiment offered, I don't think, It certainly wasn't in the other two games, so I don't think that'll come into it. But I think the team that finished that second half has got to come into his thinking, because it was so much more composed, and there was so much more quality on the field second half
Mm.
against Newcastle. And when I say quality, I don't necessarily mean the players. I just mean by the actual play. You know, it was passing into feet. It was patterns of play. It was it was a good mix of getting the ball forward, and then when it was forward, doing something intelligent with it, which, as we talked about earlier, so sorely lacked in that first half. So I do think James Garner will come into the team. I think that he's had his sort of his game on the bench now, and he's made an impact when he's come on. I think that's enough to get himself back into Dyche's thoughts. It's a case of who he plays alongside him, and I think it's so key, this midfield battle on Saturday, because if we overcome that, I think we win the game, and I think we win it comfortably. But it's all dependent on that for me. And obviously, it goes into scoring. I think Dominic comes back in, definitely. He scored that goal now, and he referenced Dyche in his post-match interview with BT on Tuesday, that he likes to change the strikers around a little, but I think that's sensible as well. I think when you've got someone like Beto who offers what he does, to bring him into a game like that now and again is sensible. And I think with the injury record that Dominic's had, it's also sensible not to play him Saturday, Tuesday. So I think to be able to have that choice to rotate them to a degree is sensible. But I think he'll bring Dominic back in. He's got a good record against Burnley as well, Calvert-Lewin. We all remember the first goal under Ancelotti was against Burnley at home, so that plays into our favour as well. I think he comes back in, and then does he offer Jack Harrison and a bit of sort of endeavour on that right hand side, and stick with McNeil? I think you've got to stick with McNeil as well. I think that there's a player undoubtedly in there, and he had a great finish to last season. We'll be hoping he can do that again, but I think you've got to stick with him, even though he hasn't looked the player that he can be for the last probably 2 months now, 3 months. But I think there's certainly quality in there with him. Um, I'm not mad keen on the Ashley Young right wing thing, but saying that, he didn't have the worst game. He didn't have the best game, but he didn't have the worst game, and he's dependable and he's solid. And I think if we're not looking for him to take players on in that wide area, then fine. But you know, it's one of them. He might just be a necessity at the minute because of the squad we've got. And then we talked about it. We referenced it a little bit on post match on Tuesday, Dave. What does he do with this right hand side at the back? Does he bring Coleman in, which I think he does? I don't think Godfrey had his worst game on Tuesday, but it's been a bit of a weak point, hasn't it? It's been an area where certainly teams with flying wingers have targeted. They targeted Ben Godfrey in an area to get into, but I didn't think he had his worst game. But I do think you've
No.
got to bring Coleman back in. And I just, what I will say is, we didn't talk about it a lot on Tuesday, and it hasn't really been made much sort of discussion. It hasn't been much of a discussion, but I think Mikalenko coming back into the side on Tuesday was such a positive. He offered so much balance, and I think he played really well again. And I think he's just been a solid performer. And I think if we can have him and Coleman on either flank, it just gives us that little bit of balance to then dictate our play going forward. And the two centre halves, obviously, they choose themselves, and I'll be looking for certainly a better performance from the both of them. And
Yeah.
whilst Branthwaite has been outstanding this season, and certainly up there with me for Mikalenko for our player of the season, I think the pair of them were a little bit off, and I've been a little bit off the last couple of games. Tarkovsky, so we need big performances from them as well. I think if that goes all to plan defensively, I think it just gives the rest of the team a little bit of life going forward. And I think the big conundrum is Onana.
Mm.
Whilst I do think he played really well, it's striking the right balance, isn't it? And I wouldn't be too surprised, and nor would I be too against it, if he went with a midfield three of Doucouré, Onana, Doucouré, Garner Gay, and James Garner. I think that's the midfield he may be off for. And just as a side note, Dave,
You think he might bench Onana?
I think he might do. Yeah, I think it was very telling when Onana come off on Tuesday that he didn't have a hissy fit or anything like that, but it was one of them straight down the tunnel jobs or straight on the bench and not really say
Exactly.
much.
Yeah.
But do you know one thing? Another thing I wouldn't be too opposed to seeing is Anana playing in the Decore role. You know, Decore hasn't been on it for me at all since he returned from injury. Whether or not he's not 100% fit, I don't know. But I think Onana playing in that little bit more of an advanced role, the way he keeps the ball as well, he has got that ability to hold the ball for us. Maybe doing that more in an advanced role rather than a deep sort of just in front of the back four. Maybe that could have its benefits, you know, holding the ball up or keeping the ball for us in them attacking areas. I don't know. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I do think whatever happens, I think he's going to likely go with James Garner and Idrissa Gueye as the midfield sort of central pair, and then he's got a choice to make, obviously, out wide as well. But there's a few questions definitely there to be answered by Dyson. I do think, as well as he's done, or well as he did on Tuesday, I don't think Angelo Gomez starts. I just don't think he's got the legs, and I don't think he's got the ability to play a full 90. I think, though, what an option if we've, you know, if we're behind or if we're drawn, and what an option to bring on just someone who can keep the ball for us. But also, if we're in a bit of a lead, he's brilliant. He's the kind of ideal player you want to bring on. You know, if with 1 or 2 nil up, just give him the ball. He'll keep it. He'll keep things ticking over. But as well as he played Tuesday, I don't think he's destined for a start, unfortunately. And I think that's how, you know, if it was me now predicting it, I think I'd say that'd be your midfield with Calvert-Lewin up front, and then Coleman coming back in for Godfrey.
The core is an interesting topic, I think, because he's been nowhere near his best since he's come back. I think that's fair to say. I think most people would agree with that, Pete. But um, you know, you think before he certainly did that, and many people will still be saying it now. He's our best player, certainly from an attacking sense of perspective. But you know, I found him a little bit of a. Would you say? I mean, frustration's a hard thing to say, given how long he was out for. But in terms of what Warren said there, it's just got me thinking of a different way you could do this in terms of Onana, play him a little bit further forward. I'm not saying as far advanced as what we see from Decore, which he almost pretty much plays off the striker, off Calvert-Lewin. It's normally a decent pair to have there. Um, I wouldn't be discouraged by seeing Onana play a little bit further forward because he can turn on the ball as well. He's lucky, as much as I sort of criticised him at the start of the show. He's an outstanding, talented player who knows what he can do with his feet. I think I criticised it to my demise when I seen one lad put up a video of how he performed against England a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying, "Oh, this is great. They're seeing him make 5 yard passes all over the place." But then I sat there thinking after it, saying, "Do you know what? I've gone a little bit too far there because it's hard for us to have a 5 yard pass to give it to somebody who'll keep hold of the ball." Do you know what I mean? But like Warren says there, sort of encouraged me a lot more to think that there are various options in there. The Gomez one, you know, I fell in love with him again, and not because he's got nice hair and all that, which is all went a bit mad, didn't it, when he first came to us and all that sort of thing. But I reiterate what I said in post match. You know, you get a player like him. He's been at Barcelona for a reason. He's been a regular starter at Barcelona for a reason. That's certainly not for pace. We know that. We know what his game is. But there's a touch of finesse that he has in what he does, and I don't think anybody else touches that in regards to what we have on offer in that midfield. And I completely agree with Warren there. I don't think you're gonna ever get a 90 from him. He probably leaves in the summer as well. To be fair, I have massive praise for him given how his approach is getting back in the side. You see it on his social media and stuff. He's desperate for Everton. I've seen him whenever, I don't know if you saw when there was a bit of a kick-off against Newcastle, and he's one of the first to start for the opposition and things. That sort of thing goes quite high in my book, to be honest with you, because I see somebody who actually gives a shit. And he's
Yeah.
been out for so long. He's been away on loan. We thought his career's over with Everton, and like I say, he might well be in what 10 games time, 8 games time. But I think he's got a big part to play in the remainder of our games here. But certainly not as a starter. You may see him start again, but he's certainly not going past 60. He's definitely not going past 60. He's certainly not going anywhere near 90. I think Dice is only selected to start him once. I think in the rest have been, or maybe twice this season. One was in the um, Palace game when he scored that free kick. I think that's the only time that he started him. Um, you know, I'm not going as far as saying you wrap him in cotton wool, but he'll get on. He'll get on against Burnley. He'll certainly play a part against Burnley. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen at some point. Um, how would you go with the midfield? Would you agree with what Warren said there?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly still think that there's a player in Andre Gomez. I really do. I think reiterating your point about I don't think you get 90 minutes out of him, but I still think he can make an impact. I think he's probably one of the players who can actually pick a pass and actually play a forward pass as well, play a good forward ball with a little bit of intelligence. He also likes to sort of drop into that sort of like sweeper role, if you like, to get the ball off the back four, which sometimes you need. I thought he did that very well against Newcastle. Just kept things ticking over. Just to go back to the point about Decore and something which I think may be affecting him. I mean, I'm not no expert, but he's in terms of his way of playing, it's very high energy, isn't it? It's very sort of high work rate, a lot of pressing, harrying defenders and things like that. And I think there's a lot to be said in terms of the fact that he'll have been fasting for a number of weeks now. I think that's probably why Onana went straight down the tunnel as well the other night. I think he probably went down the tunnel to break fast rather than throwing any kind of strop for being substituted. But I mean, it can't be underestimated the effect that can have on a professional athlete's body. Yeah. Huge. I mean, in terms of the dedication that they will be showing to that, they can't drink any water. They literally can't drink anything. They can't eat or drink anything during daylight hours. Well, so if you're trying to prepare for
it happened with Salah a lot, didn't it, over at Liverpool?
Yeah.
It's been a big issue in regards to how they set up their squad. I mean, it's obviously completely unavoidable. But I didn't even realise to include that in sort of the sort of look towards what Decore's been like and what he's been doing, because that obviously in any human being has a massive effect on, regardless of, and especially in a sport as well.
Do you know what? Well, just sorry to interject, Pete, as well. That's something. Just I know I've not criticised him, but I know I've just sort of said about him being off and being not on his game and not looking the same since his injury, and I didn't even factor that into it. And of course, that's going to play a huge part on any athlete. And as you know, both of you know, I'm a teacher, and at our school, a lot of the kids are doing Ramadan, and you can see the effect on their learning as well. So to have that on a professional athlete who has to be at the top level of fitness, it's difficult to do. So, although I've sort of criticised him there, and I'm not doubling down, I'm not going back on myself. I still think he could have been better, but I understand, I appreciate as well the impact that would have had on him too.
Yeah, I think it's fair to, at the end of the day, we're here to sort of talk about performance. We're talking about, in terms of what we expect from the players, and I think it's fair to criticize performances. But as I say, it's just I do think that will have had an impact, certainly on. I mean, there would have been 3 players, I think, who would have started, or certainly in the side you would have had Onana as well, Abdoulaye Doucouré, and Idrissa Gana Gueye. So all 3 of those will have been, fasting during this last however many weeks. I'm not entirely sure when that's over as well, to be honest with you. Pardon my ignorance, but certainly, I say it's something to sort of bear in mind. So in terms of performance level, in terms of energy, in terms of work rate and everything else, I think we probably will see an uptick from certainly those 3 players once this period is over. Because it is one of those things that it's unavoidable, and fair play to them for having that dedication to their religion. But as I say, it's something to really consider in terms of going, playing against Burnley. I would be tempted to go with the team, or close to the team that finished the game against Newcastle, and that includes Andre Gomez, James Garner, Andre Gomez. I think I saw Gomez getting a little bit of criticism the other night, which I thought was unfair, because I thought that he did just do the job that he was there to do. He came on, kept the ball ticking over. He took the ball off the back four rather than letting us go long all the time. And I think that's what he does offer. Like you say, you can't get 90 minutes out of him, but if you can get an hour out of him and then potentially bring players in to finish the job, I don't think that's a bad option to utilise. But again, because of how Burnley play, you're going to want high energy in that final third. Can Ashley Young offer that? Can Ashley Young do all of the tracking, all of the pressing that you'd expect from him? Will he go back to Jack Harrison, because he seems to be his trusted sort of player when it comes to playing that sort of style, system where you want players to be putting the defenders on the back foot a little bit. I want to see more from Jack Harrison. I'll be honest with you. I want to see him, for one. I want him to stop coming inside all the time, although it's difficult when he's so left-footed. But I want to see him try and use the width of the pitch a bit more. I think it'll help him if he's got Seamus Coleman, behind him as well, because I think Coleman will offer. Obviously, he can't get up and down the wing as much as he used to, but at least he can offer, some help on that right hand side. Certainly, Ben Godfrey will. If he got past the halfway line, he'd have a nosebleed. I think he's certainly not suited to a fullback role. So I think if we have that better balance with Coleman and Mikalenko, hopefully we can then see the best out of the wingers as well. I'd go with that with Calvert-Lewin up front. I think after, as much as Beto tried the other day, as much as he's a handful, I think Calvert-Lewin, we've got to try and get him in some kind of form for this running, because if we can get 4 or 5 goals out of him from now to the end of the season, I think that probably keeps us up. So I'd go with Calvert-Lewin, and hopefully he can ride the wave of positivity that I'm sure he's feeling since breaking that duck against Newcastle. So yeah, the nice thing is we've actually finally got options, haven't we? We've gone so long this season where we've had to name 2 keepers on the bench. We've had all these injury problems and like a lot of teams have, but for once we seem to be actually getting a bit of a settled squad. I'm not sure about Dan Juma where he's at, but I'm sure he'll have a part to play as well in the games going forward. But I'd go with Calvert-Lewin. I'd personally go with Gomez as well in the midfield. But if you're going to go with, I'd probably agree with Warren, with James Garner, Gay, and Decore. I think he'll probably go with that.
Just to wrap it up then, what are you thinking score-wise then? How do you think we're going to get on?
I think, like I said earlier, Burnley at home, you'd expect 3 points. And the way we've played against them this season, we've made light work of them. We had them in the cup, obviously, and it was a really comfortable game for us. And the away game as well, that was an easy or an enjoyable 3 points to get that I've seen in years from Everton. It looked like Burnley just weren't at the same level or weren't able to keep up pace with Premier League football. But things happen and things change, and that was in the middle of our very good run when we beat them away from home, and it was in the sort of start or middle of their really poor run. And I think even though results have not necessarily shown, I think they've had better performances recently, but I think the same could be said for us. I think bar that first half against Newcastle, we haven't really played that bad recently. It's just a case, Dave, and we're going over old ground here again. It's a case of putting that ball in the back of the net, players taking responsibility and going, right, I am going to put everything on the line now to make sure that ball goes in and we have 3 points. And I think what you'll see happen is if we get a 1 or 2-0 lead, I think you'll start seeing a bit what happened when we had Newcastle at home, where we start putting passes together and start playing nice football. I think we've not been in a position since then where we can really look to enjoy our football. If anything, it's been a bit fearful of what could happen, or it's more the protect mode rather than the go for the jugular mode. So, and that's understandable. I'm not here to criticize that, because we've had managers in the past who've been gung ho when we really wanted them to shut up shop a bit and be a bit more conservative in our play. So do I think we'll win? There's always that nagging doubt, isn't there, with us? Always is. But I think now's the time we step up. We've got, like Pete referenced earlier, we've probably earmarked these home games now. And if you had to pick, in the situation we're in, if you had to pick 4 home games to have left, you'd have something pretty close to what we've got after Burnley, Brentford, Sheffield United, Forest. You go pretty close to wanting them games, wouldn't you? So now's the time to step up. And listen, for all I said earlier about how it's been, certainly in my time supporting Everton, it's been disappointing and we've had nothing to shout about. When they need to step up, they have done. And when they've needed to pull something out the bag, they have done, especially in relegation situations. So I think, yeah, going to this game, we're due a win. If we were Burnley, we've said this many a times. Well, if we were Burnley fans now, we'd be looking at going, oh, they've had no win in 13.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, they're going to get the first win against us. That's the mentality that we've had. So why not? Why not go into it and embrace the fact that, yeah, do you know what? We're not playing City or we're not playing, Man United or one of the so-called bigger teams at home. We're playing Burnley and we should be able to, and we're Everton and we should be able to get 3 points. So take that attitude into it. And by the way, not just players, fans as well.
Yeah.
And we'll get the 3 points. I've no doubt about it. But yeah, there's always that nagging doubt.
Pete, what are you going for with this? First win in 2024, which is painful to say.
It's just got to be a win, hasn't it? We've got to. I think, as Warren said, if we can get an early goal and get our noses in front, and if the game gets stretched and Burnley have to come at us, I think we can go on and put in a really strong performance. I've actually, call me daft, I said this last season as well. I've just got this nagging feeling that at some point someone's going to get tonked. Someone's going to take an absolute battering. Right.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to have one of them moments. So I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow, but at some point I feel like we're going to go out and things are going to click. Whether that's tomorrow, I'm not sure.
A great one to do it, wouldn't it, mate?
Well, I remember saying this last season. They kept saying it, and then I just didn't expect it to happen against Brighton. It was like the last game in the world I thought it was happening. But I think Burnley will get a goal. I hope it's not first, because if it is, if it does happen, the crowd needs to get behind the players. We can't afford to be. That's the time when you've got to fight back. Do you know what I mean? When you go a goal down, that's the time when the players need you the most. And we've seen it happen so many times in the past where you feel so deflated that as soon as a goal goes in, you think that's it. Well, I don't think we can afford to do that tomorrow. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. And I think, yeah, I think I'd be very happy with that. I can see Burnley scoring, but it's all about how we react to that.
Personally, I don't think where we're scoring 3 goals from, to be honest with you, mate. Not to slate what you just said. I reckon it'll be a dirty, horribly watching 1-0 to us. Where, I've seen the pitch at Goodison looks in pristine condition as well. By the way, I wouldn't mind it if it was proper. Like, have you ever seen Jimmy Grimble? The pitches that he plays on Jimmy Grimble, where it's just like it's mud, it's just mud all over the place. There's not even any grass on the pitch. Mind you, that'd probably suit Burnley as well, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I think we'll scrap a 1-0. But yeah, thanks for joining us to listen to this. We got it out on a Friday. Given the way we played on Tuesday, things have mixed up a little bit in terms of the normal days we get things out. So that's the weekly done for you ahead of tomorrow's game against Burnley. We've still got the mailbag to come as well. And I think Matt's doing a preview with a journalist from Burnley to see what they're thinking about ahead of this one. And yeah, if there's ever a time to get behind Everton, even more so than we always do, then this run of 5 games we've got left at Goodison, they're the ones that this is the time to actually go and do it. But thanks for listening anyway, and up the toffees.